Hello and welcome to another Stroke Warrior show with our guest today. We're talking about, I guess it's DME to a certain extent, but durable medical equipment, but it's really not because it's more for an active recovery to help stroke survivors and even TBI that have been affected by this. So let me introduce our guest today, Dr. Tyler Susko. Is that correct?
Susko, pretty good.
Susko, okay. Tyler's an active professor teaching at UC Santa Barbara, and he teaches 9 courses in product and machine design. Before his PhD at MIT, he was a design engineer for Ingersoll Rand. Good morning and welcome to the show, Tyler.
Thanks, Ralph. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Like I was telling you before, I'm really excited about this because what we're talking about is Cadence Adaptive. Cadence Adaptive is a company that works on, how would you describe it? Adaptive shoes?
Yeah, so currently we have our Cadence original shoes. That's what we're calling them. They're, I'll hold it up here so you can see. So it's we have a shoes that have a low friction area and then a high friction area. And what they allow you to do is slide along the ground if you need to. So if you accidentally come in contact with the ground, the shoe still will move. And then when you put your weight on it, I don't know if you can see this in the camera, but
yes,
they squish up here. So
Mhm.
when they squish up, you get your high traction back.
Nice.
So yeah.
Well, tell me the story about Cadence. How did it all come about?
Well, this is a long story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible. So yeah, you read my background out. It was great. I'm an engineer. I started as an engineer, and I was working on all-terrain vehicles and golf carts to get started, and then power tools. And at that time I decided I wanted to go back to go back to grad school. So and eventually I wanted to be a professor. I was teaching physics at night while I was working, and I really liked teaching. So I said, okay, why don't I go back into school? And so I started applying a bunch of places, and one of the places I got in at MIT had a lab there that was doing work with rehab robotics. So specifically robots that interface with people to recover after neuro injury. And at the time, I didn't know much about neuro injury, but I had an experience while I was in high school visiting a school for people, for children with cerebral palsy. And that, at the time I was moved by that. And I thought, now that I'm an engineer, I can make stuff that maybe could help somebody in their life. And, as a mechanical person, what a better way than thinking about biomechanics, because I knew mechanics and I knew how to make devices, so I could kind of marry these things up and I could be useful. So I joined this lab at MIT, which was doing these. They were the first, I think they were the first place in the world to make a rehab robot in the 80s. It was just this kind of hand or arm robot that interfaced with people, and my advisor actually took this to a hospital and tried it with stroke patients for the first time ever, and thought, hey, maybe there's a future with this robots that it could interface with humans, because as you well know, physical therapy is important for recovering post-stroke, but there are limitations on what humans can do. Robots are great because they don't tire. You could be on them forever. They don't actually converse with you either, which is sometimes a good idea, because you could have more movements per session. There are studies on that as well. And so he thought, oh, okay, maybe this is an interesting idea. And so he pursued that. That was his life's work, and that was my advisor. His name's Dr. Armando Ego Krebs at MIT, super smart guy. And so I started working with them because at the time I went to MIT, I never knew anything about robots. I never took a course in robotics, didn't know controls, anything. And so I said, why not? Just go do a PhD in this. So I did. And I started to get really interested in it, and ended up developing a machine for people that had difficulty walking post-stroke or other neuro problems like cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, things like that. People that had trouble clearing the floor during walking. In rehab robot world, there's a lot of robots that grab onto the body and then pretty much dictate the movement pattern that you're going to do.
Exactly.
And one of the things, the tenets of rehab is that the movement needs to come from the person. So the person needs to direct this movement. And this is what we believe about rehab robots, or at least I believe with all the research that I've looked at, is that you have to allow the intention of movement to happen. It's an essential ingredient into recovering because we want to retrain the neural system. One of the things that I like to think about is, when you've had a stroke, it's not, your muscles aren't broken, your bones aren't broken, your spinal cord's not broken, and any of those things, they're all still good. It's just something in the brain now needs to rewire itself and figure its way around to get the rest of the body, which is in perfect condition, to move again. So we need to harness that part. Like whatever it is that's making the movement happen needs to be able to be engaged. So what we had done with the Skywalker machine at MIT was we're not gonna force the body to move. We're gonna allow the person to move freely, and we're gonna remove the constraints that are preventing normal movement from happening. So in this case, for walking, the problem was that there's a ground there, and the foot can't get past the ground if we're having something like foot drop or spasticity or something that's causing your leg to be straight. It's impossible to get the leg through. So what we did with the Skywalker is let's just remove the constraint completely. So every time somebody took a step, we would remove one side of the floor. So I had two treadmills. Each treadmill could just fall away. So every time somebody took a step, we'd drop the treadmill. The foot then could swing forward freely like a pendulum. And then when it came in contact with the treadmill track again, the treadmill would come up to meet the foot and it would go through its next step. And as soon as they would come forward for that next step again, I had a camera vision system that was looking at the leg. As soon as that leg started to make a foot move forward, drop the track again. And so they would just keep taking steps without having to worry about the foot clipping on the ground. And so we ran a pilot test at MIT on that, and I found that among therapeutic measures that we were tracking, people just told me it's really easy to walk on that machine because I don't have to worry about my foot hitting the ground. And so I said, that's interesting. So afterwards, one of the people that was in my study said to me, boy, it feels good. I wish you could take that feeling when I was outside of the lab because this is a big robotic machine that stays in the
Yeah,
laboratory and
I
or
saw the pictures. Yeah.
yeah, you can't bring that home. So I said, okay, well, that's interesting. And it just so happened, things happen maybe for a reason. But one of the people that was in the study was moving to Santa Barbara. I took a job as a professor at UC Santa Barbara. So um, I said, why don't we work on this together? She said, okay, great. That sounds awesome. So we started to try to transfer what we were doing on a treadmill into something that was over ground. So the first shoe became a robotic shoe. The robotic shoe was had all kind of problems. It's weight. Nobody wants to wear a robot, pretty much. I mean, I would because I'm a nerd like that and I like robots, right? But like I've realized that the average person is not like me. And in a slight tangent, I've done programs with kids, robotics and stuff like that. And I always just feel like I threw it at I worked with Girls Inc. one year, and I was like, oh, we're gonna do robots. We're gonna inspire all these kids. Not everybody is into robots like me. I
No.
learned that lesson. No, so it wasn't. It wasn't. It was like, oh, like 10% of the kids actually wanted to do it. But so anyway, back to the story. Not everybody wants to wear robots. The software is prone to bugs. Batteries and motors are heavy. And number one, the thing that I've learned throughout my journey here to get Cadence is people want to look nice. People don't want to look weird. They don't want
Don't
devices
want
that
to
make them
stand
look.
out.
They don't want to stand out. Especially if you have a gait impairment or some sort of a disability that's making your gait look different. You don't want to look more different. So for those reasons, we said, okay, no more motors, no more stuff, no robot shoe. Let's try to make this as passive. When I say passive, meaning no motors or batteries, just under the energy of the person themselves. So we started to just experiment with springs and things that could go on a shoe that would replicate the feeling of the Skywalker machine, but in a shoe. So we started cutting up shoes, and I had a whole bunch of students working on this as their projects, and they were making all kind of weird things. And eventually, one of the students said, "I want to do my master's on this. I like this." And at the time, we had shoe that had like a plunger that went forward and backwards if this is a shoe. The plunger's coming this way,
Oh my gosh.
and that was very unsafe when people went down steps because the plunger would collapse.
Oh,
So that lasted one test, and we're like, "Yep, nope, no, this is done." And so we worked with her and some more students on creating something else that would do the same thing, take away the penalty for clipping the ground, and give us the traction back when you stand on it. And so we were at the time drilling holes into thick-soled shoes and putting in elements, some sort of a springy, spongy material, and some sort of a low friction like puck that was on the front, a little
right.
nub. And so we got to a place where we felt like this is relatively safe. Let's run it. We did a study with our local hospital. We had physical therapists come, and we found that on these shoes that very much follow the same principle as these Cadence original shoes, it was benefiting people. We had 5 people in the study. We published this in the Engineering, Medicine, and Biology conference in Berlin in 2019, and we were finding that without any instruction, some of these people were improving their biomechanics. And what I mean by that is 3 out of the 5 people that were walking in these shoes here in our lab walked 20 to 60% faster in 2 minutes wearing the shoes. So we let them just walk back and forth in our lab. We had a fall support harness at that time because we didn't know what was going to happen with these things. And we had physical therapists with a gait belt, making sure everybody was safe. And then we measured them in a 10-meter walk test, which is the standard measure of gait speed. And we found that, wow, some people are just walking faster. And actually, what's happening? And then so we put those same people on a treadmill that was instrumented with cameras, 6 cameras, and a whole bunch of markers, 20 markers on each leg. And we're looking at what's happening with the actual biomechanics as people are walking. What we found is the people that were walking faster stopped doing things like circumducting their gait. So their hip joint wasn't flying out as much or vaulting their hip to make that step. That's a very energetically costly way to walk because
Yeah,
you're relying on these tiny muscles, right?
that was exactly what I did during my stroke recovery for 7 years. I had
Yes,
the circle, I
the
had the
circle.
drop, all of that. So
Yes,
that brings us to the why of all this.
yes,
So we all know that following stroke symptoms include all kinds of things: paralysis, weakness, cognitive challenges, fatigue, sleep problems, emotional problems. Um, let's get into the common walking problems for a stroke survivor or
yeah,
TBI or
yep,
cerebral palsy or whatever.
yep.
What are some of the common problems there?
Yeah, so what we're really focusing on, of course, there's spasticity associated with certain people are going to have spasticity. Some people have permanent contractures. Some people are going to have foot drop or loss of the ability to control the tibialis anterior muscle, which pulls the ankle up. Um, and we're trying to these shoes will address anything that we've been saying that they are made for people with walking difficulties that have difficulty advancing the foot forward during gait. If you have trouble advancing your foot forward, because your foot's going to come in contact. So, for example, let's say that you have contractures that make your knee straight, or you have a stiff knee and your whole leg is stiff. It's impossible to get that foot really forward without clipping the toe. These things are just going to slide. And when they slide, they're going to get in front of your body. What we're trying to avoid here is if the foot comes in contact with the ground over a sticky surface, it sticks. And if it's a simple physics problem, if you have momentum and you're walking at a certain speed, and if I just stop one end of your gait because you stick to the ground, the center of mass wants to continue moving. And so that's going to now pitch your body forward, which could lead you to trip, and then you're going to have to recover and all that kind of stuff. You have a low friction surface, we no longer hit and stick, we hit and slide. And so that'll give your base of support time to get underneath your center of mass, which will
Okay.
make you not have that abrupt change where the center of mass wants to tip forward. So yeah, for any of these problems, whether you've got a stiff knee, you have contractures of the ankle, you have loss of control, so the tibialis anterior isn't necessarily working to pull that toe up, so you have foot drop. That's what the shoes are really allowing you to continue your gait.
Yeah, and it addresses foot drop as well because it
That's right.
keeps your foot in the same position as a correct walking position, I guess is the right word. Um, so the one of the big things that Stroke Warrior Radio likes to focus on is the mental health aspect. Do you find that the patients that are using these um, have a better outlook, are more positive, their confidence is better, those kind of things, that their recovery becomes better?
Yeah, so I can address this in a couple different ways. So there is a link in literature and research literature we can find between actually walking speed and a whole bunch of different metrics, including improvements on the stroke impact scale, which is a measure of all of the things that you just mentioned, disposition on life, all kind of things. The what we're trying to do with these shoes, and we have a clinical trial which we can talk about, that's going on in the Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, which is in Chicago. It's the #1 stroke hospital in the US. It's a good place to do this type of research. But what we're trying to do is increase that walking speed. If we can increase the walking speed, it'll increase the chances that people are going to walk, get
Yeah,
out of their house, get into the community, go out with friends and family, and those sorts of things. So, like you said, with all types of mental health or happiness in general, I do believe that will be correlated with your ability to walk and be mobile. And the shoes are a tool that I believe will help people with that. So you also asked about, like, am I hearing things? Yeah. So we've gotten a lot of comments back from people that have wearing the shoes. We just started to log them. We're like, we should probably log these things. But people saying like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is great. We've had comments saying it's changed my life. I'm able to do things that I wasn't able to do before. And that's pretty much the reason why we're doing this.
yeah. I'm curious, does it improve, is it in conjunction with physical therapy, or is it in addition to?
That's a great question and a really important point too. So um, when we were developing these shoes, they were originally conceived to replicate the Skywalker machine, which was a physical therapy tool. I was trying to do that at a greater scale. One of the problems with physical therapy is that it's hard for people to get the proper volume of therapy. Insurance will only pay for so much physical therapy post-injury, and eventually it stops and people stop going. So my thought was, could we bring the therapy into the home? So if we have something that makes it easier to do therapy, i.e. in this case, just to walk, and we could give people the resources, the education so that they can walk, um, hypothetically, we would have better outcomes because
Right,
people will increase the volume. There's literature on that too. The volume of therapy is correlated to the gains that you get from the therapy. So if we can have a device that can go home with you, that you could train with 5 days a week for a half hour to 45 minutes a day, that's our clinical trial protocol. You'd be increasing the volume at which you were training. And if you're
okay,
increasing the volume at which you're training, the gains theoretically would correspond with that. So yeah, that's how these were conceived initially. We were trying to increase the accessibility to therapy. But since we've kind of launched these and worked with a lot of different populations, say like MS or Parkinson's, we found that the shoes can be a really good assistive device for some people. So my dad has Parkinson's, and Parkinson's leads a lot of times to a shuffle gait, where the feet are shuffling along the ground. And
right,
so, of course, if your feet are shuffling, if we remove the friction, the coefficient of friction, reduce the amount of force that you're getting in the opposite way that you're trying to move your foot, it just makes it easier to walk. So if you're going to shuffle, you could shuffle with these shoes, the foot will slide nicely on these little skis, and then you press down, you get your traction back. So for people with Parkinson's, they became beneficial. So it's not necessarily just a rehab tool.
yeah.
That's what it was developed to be, but it's really for anybody that needs a little bit of help in walking.
So it's not a take it home and use it for 1 hour a day. It's you can, this is your
This
new
could be your
shoe.
new shoe. Yeah, and we've had people with strokes. My wife's grandmother, because that makes her my grandma-in-law. Um, uh, she uh, we got her a pair of these shoes as soon as they became available, and she just wears them all day. It's the only shoes
Yeah.
that she wears.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that leads us to the next area, I guess, is, when I think of an adaptive shoe, which is what you are, is an
Yeah.
adaptive shoe, correct?
Hmm. Yeah.
When I think of an adaptive shoe, I go back to the 60s and 70s when I saw the kids with the shoes with the big clunky soles to change their height pattern and all of that.
Yep.
Tell me about the history of adaptive shoes and what it's come to.
Yeah, so one of the things we did, so once we decided that, hey, we're going to actually try to make this a real solution for people instead of just a research project, I joined this program called the National Science Foundation's I-Corp program. It was like kind of a product market fit boot camp. So for scientists, because scientists and engineers, we're not the best at really understanding markets and what consumers want, and we're all a little bit strange, I guess.
That
And
nerd thing again, right?
the nerd thing again, yeah. So
Yeah.
I would be happy wearing a robot around. Most people. So what this led us to do is do a lot of market research. So we started talking to a lot of people. I started talking to a lot of people, probably 50 stroke patients slash um, physical therapists, people with any other type of walking difficulties, and number one about function. And this is getting back to, what is it with adaptive shoes and how they've evolved. Above function, everybody told me it's got to look good or I'm not going to wear it. I don't want something with these double Velcro straps that's this ugly drab black leather orthotic looking thing that makes me look stupid. I want to look nice. I want to have style and I want to look good. It was almost 100% across the board that you can't make people look different. They want to fit in. And in fact, they don't just want to fit in, they want to be stylish. So that was like the number one thing that came across. People were sick of shoes, orthotic shoes,
That look like,
adaptive shoes that look
yeah,
like crap. And then the
yeah,
other thing about adaptive shoes, our CEO and our company, Cadence, he always likes to say that he calls this the first truly adaptive shoe. When you think about adaptive shoes that are other shoes that are on the market, a lot of them just have to do with features that allow you to get your foot in easier. They're adaptive in the fact that you can get your foot in easier. But our shoes, we think, are the first that not only make it pretty easy to get your foot in, but have something in there that actually helps with the biomechanics and adapts to your gait. So, so we think that we're kind of attacking this problem in a little bit of a different way, one of high fashion, which is not my forte. So I had to find people that would do that. I mean, I would wear the same t-shirt every day of my life.
yeah.
Fine with it. But most people like to look nice. So we worked with shoe designers that designed shoes for famous sports stars and really knew their thing about what is fashionable. And they went through the iterations of making something that looked good. We ran surveys to people in terms of color combinations, what's going to look nice. And we found something that actually looks, I think, very nice. This is a black one. It looks
Yeah.
really nice.
I got to tell you, I've seen the shoes in person and I've seen them in action, and
Yeah.
I have heard 4 or 5 people tell me they look just like another brand.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful shoe. It's really
Yeah.
nice.
That wasn't me, but it was my realization that they needed to look nice. So I worked with artists, people that did shoe design for a living. We have some really great shoe designers that we're really fortunate. We're in Santa Barbara, and Santa Barbara is the home of Deckers, which owns a whole lot of different shoe brands. So like Hoka, they own UGG, Teva. And what that means is there's a lot of shoe talent here. So we worked with the first person that I started working with was named Stuart Jenkins, and he was the former chief innovation officer of Deckers, of all those brands. So he was the person who brought Hoka up, which is now becoming a big shoe brand. And on our board is a guy named Zohar Ziv, who is the chief operating officer at Deckers. So he knows footwear. So we were very lucky to have these people in our backyard that kind of shepherded all of this and introduced us to these amazing shoe designers and made this look so pretty.
Yeah, again, I'm impressed with the look of them. They adaptive shoes, I guess, are designed to help with a number of different health conditions. Are yours specifically focused for certain ones, or
Yeah,
can they be almost for anyone?
that's a good question. So the shoes operate much like a running shoe. So they're not going to fix problems like that are associated with the toes or any kind of deformities in the foot. So for those types of problems, you probably want a custom insole or something like that. They're not going to correct things like supination or pronation. They're going to, these shoes are meant to help you slide and glide if you have trouble with getting your foot forward when you're advancing gait. And that's the primary difference with these shoes. A lot of people ask us, will they help with these different conditions? That being said, we found really good success if people do have things like supination, where their ankle turns in, with using this shoe with what we would call an air cast or an ankle brace that permits up and down motion, but limits side to side motion. So that'll correct for your supination. And then the shoe will help you to retrain the dorsiflexion, plantar flexion direction of your gait. So yeah, in general, we always tell people if you have trouble advancing your foot forward when you're walking, these shoes are for you. If
Yeah.
that's not your problem, they're not going to be any different than any other shoe.
And it's not a running shoe, correct?
That's right. It's a walking shoe.
Okay, okay. What are the advantages that, well, how do they differ from regular shoes?
Yeah, so the only thing that makes them, well, actually, there's a couple features. Um, so, of course, the low friction nature and the high friction nature is going to be different. This is our new feature that will make these shoes unlike anything else. We've also spent time on entry to the shoes. So there are now shoes that you can buy like Kizik that allow you to just step into them and things of that nature. And we designed a lot of that into this shoe, but we also wanted it to be very secure for you. So all you have to do to put them on is un-Velcro this tab right here. And we have a finger loop there. So if you have problems with hand dexterity, you could just put your finger in the loop and then
Didn't
just
even
pull
see
it out.
that.
Yeah,
Cool.
this is one of the things we need to start highlighting because it's there and nobody knows it's there.
Yeah.
So effectively, if you want to get your shoe off and you have trouble gripping or, post-stroke, we might have
Yeah.
trouble with our dexterity. So we can just put our finger in that loop, however you want to do it, from the bottom, from the top, whatever, and just pull up and it comes off. So now this is off and you can get out of the shoe pretty easily. The back of the shoe is really stiff. And that's so that when we put our foot in, it doesn't push the back down. So if you're doing this without a hand, if
Yeah.
you have a shoe that is collapsible in the back, it just squishes this part down and you won't be able to get your foot in. The tongue is also very stiff in this direction so that you don't just push it into the shoe when your foot goes in there.
Oh, that's a great feature. I like that.
Yeah, so you can just get your foot, push it in without a hand. And then usually it just requires a tiny little tug on this to get it situated. And then you just take this flap and flap it over, and now you're all secure.
For those
So
of you that are just listening, I know we're going to put this on our YouTube channel, but just listening, the shoe on the bottom has two, I like the way you described it. It has two skis on the front sole,
yeah,
on the outside. And in the middle is a normal sneaker bottom, I'll say,
yes,
that when you put the pressure on, that engages.
yep,
So the middle will drop down and engage to get greater friction without a slip like the sides do. Is
that's
that
right.
correct in description?
That's absolutely perfect. Yes.
I love that. Because I have slip-on shoes and I've always got to go down there with the crank thing to pull up the tongue or whatever, and it's always such a pain. So I mean, your
Yeah.
features are incredible. Can adaptive shoes be used for sports or physical activities?
So these are mainly meant for people that want to walk better. So some people do write us and they ask us, can we use these for pickleball or something like that? They're not meant for that. They're really meant for if you're playing pickleball, you might not need our shoes.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
no skis, you're going to slip all over the place, right?
well, they do. If you look at our website, they do come in contact really quickly with the shoes. So I have initial videos that we've made, and I don't even know if they're on there anymore. I can jump sideways in these things, and they will
Oh,
grip
okay.
the ground. So I can jump laterally, and they'll
Oh,
grip because this happens really quick. So this will happen really quickly, and you'll get your friction back. So I'm actually able to do it, and I don't have any problems with my gait. So for testing, these are my running shoes. I run in them just to test them. And so it's
oh, okay.
okay. It's okay. I run in them. I'm cautious with them, but they're not built to be running shoes. They're meant to be walking shoes to help people that have difficulties walking.
Are adaptive shoes usually designed to accommodate orthotic devices like an ankle foot orthotic?
Ah, very good question. Okay, so our answer on this, if you can get your AFO in a regular width or wide width shoe currently, just standard wide, not extra wide, then you'd be able to get them in these shoes as well. However, if you need a 2E width, which is more on the wide side, extra wide width, 4E, or 6E extra wide, which is common to a lot of AFOs, they will not fit your AFO. We are in development of something right now, and in fact, Ralph, if you're interested, I can send you a link for anybody that's watching to join our AFO program. It's a beta test that I'm going to run with a new shoe that we just developed. So this is hot off the press. It's a prototype. They're not on market yet. But we're running, this is what we did with these Cadence Originals too, is before we put them in market, we ensured that they were working for people, so that we can make sure that, if we need any extra tweaks or whatever, we can do that before we make 1,000 of them or whatever.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
we're starting to run that. I can send you a link for that for anybody that would like to join. It will be free to join. You'll walk in the AFO shoes for 3 months, and we'll talk back
Yeah,
and forth just to make sure everything is good. So yeah,
typical.
we'll be doing that. And that's for people that have a width that is bigger than just a standard E width. So for
Okay.
people that are need 2E, probably 4E to 6E, those shoes will be made extra wide. And those have different features that accommodate an AFO in ways that I think are going to be different than any shoe that's made. So we started on that shoe once we realized people really people want an AFO compliant shoe. And so we
Yes.
designed this shoe 100% with AFOs in mind.
Great. Fantastic. How do people know if the adaptive shoes are good for them? I mean, is it a doctor referral? Is it a physical therapist referral? Is it, hey, I want those?
Yep, yep. So we're starting a program which is called the Cadence Coaches Program. Since we launched these shoes, we've received a lot of requests for information and samples and talking from doctors, physical therapists. And in fact, we have now over 70, I think, Cadence coaches, we call them, which are physical therapists, exercise scientists, or occupational therapists, people that coach people, or train them in a clinical setting. We have 70 people across the country now that have reached out to us and have become part of our program. Right now, 7% of our sales are coming directly from those therapists, which is great. So that would be something that we hope down the line would be more of a staple, because the therapists will understand their walking, and they'll understand what the shoes would do and how to use them. And we're sharing information from our clinical trials with those coaches, those therapists, so that they know exactly what's happening in trials, and so that they have the best information about the shoes. So that would be one way that you could get them. Within a week, we're going to release a map on our website, which has the Cadence coaches all around the country. So if somebody wanted to find someone that had a little bit more knowledge, again, I'm an engineer, not a physical therapist. So the physical therapist will be the best one to really talk to you about your gait. And we hope that by the end of the year, we'll have 150 locations. And then, we want to build it so we have 500 or 1,000 places where people could find someone in their area that was knowledgeable about this shoe. And also physical therapy, they can find other physical therapy with that professional as well, not just shoe. So that would be one way, the number one way. So that would be 93% of people that buy our shoes are just finding us on the website. And they're saying, okay, I have difficulty advancing my foot during swing, with the swing phase of gait. And so I'll give them a try. So we give people a 30-day trial period when they buy
Oh,
the shoes. So they can try the shoes out. We ask that they keep them in like new condition, so that when they send them back, if they want to return them, that we can restock them and not throw them away. We ask them to try it on carpet first to make sure it feels comfortable, because that's not going to damage the shoes. And once you feel like this is going to be something that you like to pursue more, then take it over hard surfaces, asphalt, and do all that kind of stuff. So the 30-day trial there is for people so that they can try it and see if this is something that they're going to like before having to keep them.
Um, I was told yesterday when I looked at the shoe again was with a physical therapist that they should be used for the first time with the therapist. Is that correct? I mean, is it
In
better?
an ideal case, I 100% agree with that. It's great to have somebody to coach you. There are tools that we're trying to give these educational materials out as much as possible. Whenever you order a pair of shoes now, what comes along with it is 5 days of training videos. So every day we send you an email, and the first email is, for example, getting started with your Cadence originals. So there's a video of me talking about how to get them on and how to walk with them and the feelings that you're going to feel, because this is a different walking experience. We've never
Yes.
walked on a low friction surface before. And when we do, like if you walk on an ice rink, that friction will never become high friction again.
Yeah.
So it's natural for about 30% of the people to feel a little bit like, what am I doing with this? And you have to learn to trust the shoe. So in our beta test for these Cadence Originals, where I had 14 people complete this test, and we talked all the time, seeing how things went. About 30% of the people told me, "Hey, these are really slippery. I don't know what I'm doing with this." And we would talk as soon as they got them, and then after a week, and then I'd say, "Okay, you've tried them for a week. I want you to slide the shoe, and then I want you to put your weight on it and feel it now grip, and then do it again, and you're going to start trusting it." So after a week, I was able to get everybody beyond that hump. So 100% of the people that did this beta test with me were comfortable, and then they ended up liking the shoes long term. But a 30% needed to really start to trust them and follow some recommendations on how to get used to them. So what we do now when people buy their shoes, and this is recent, within the last couple of weeks, we've got all this together. But we have me explaining the shoes, but then we also have a physical therapist, and she explains how to use the shoes and how to get started. And then day two, you get the next level of videos, which is like, okay, now we're going to start walking with your shoes. Here's what to expect. We call it testing the waters. Like you're dipping your toe into the pool for the first time. We're using the shoe underneath our body for the first time. We're feeling it low friction. We're putting weight on it. We're feeling it get to high friction. And we're going to try to get through that. Then there's videos that from physical therapists and more from me. And so there's 5 days
Yeah.
of videos that'll really get you prepared and ready to go. But in an ideal case, yeah, you're using this as part of your physical therapy routine with a physical therapist. But most people are just getting the shoes and following our tutorials.
Right. I This is a left field question.
Yeah.
Most of my sneakers in there for the first few years, you can see a wear on one
Yeah.
side of the
Yes.
affected side.
That makes sense.
How is durable is that
Yeah.
for your shoes?
That's a great question. So the bottom of these are made of nylon.
Okay.
Nylon plastic is the most durable plastic that we can get that will still adhere with adhesives. So this will be a more wear-resistant material than foam will, and rubber. This will be more wear-resistant. However, if you're a person that's going to push really hard and scuff into that ground every single step on asphalt, they're going to wear out. so,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, when I did the beta test, I had these 14 people. Some were walking up to 6 months with them. They came back, the pucks, these ski areas were only worn down by like 1 millimeter. They're 4 millimeters thick. So they had a whole lot of
Oh,
life left in them. I didn't
great.
see any problems with wear on that. However, we've had, I think there's 3,000 pairs out there right now, 3,000, 4,000 pairs out there. And we've had two come back and within a month because they were just grinding them against asphalt continuously. So it's not a common occurrence. It completely depends on your walking gait. If you're a person if you've had a stroke and you can walk on asphalt with them, it's fine. And you're going to lightly graze the ground every time, they're going to be fine. They're going to hold up 6 months to a year or, depending on how much you're really pushing into them. If you're a person that is going to have, say, that stiff leg and you're going to take it and just grind it into the ground, you're going to wear them out because it is a
Yeah.
nylon plastic surface that's going to be really, it's going to grind on
Yeah.
you.
I, um, Yeah, I just lost train of thought. Anyway,
Yeah. No,
uh,
no problem. No problem.
what are the features of your? Oh, I got another quick question.
Yeah.
That's what it
Yeah.
was. Aerobic exercises. Can they do some of that low impact stuff with these on?
Oh yeah, yeah. And in fact, there's a video that one of the she's a great physical therapist. Her name is Dr. Gretchen. She does our videos for us, and she has one on not only just walking with the shoes, but also using them as an exercise tool. So she has things like you could sit down in a chair and do leg curls. So you could put your leg out forward and then now slide and pull them in and push out and pull them in. So there's we'll release more content on this
Great.
as we go, but you can certainly use them as a workout device. Things that I would say, if you wanted to take them on like an elliptical machine, they might not be the best choice for that because they have the sliding nature on the elliptical machine. So I would say
Okay.
if you're going to go on an elliptical or like a exercise bike, I would recommend regular sneakers for that.
Okay.
But if you're going on walks on a regular treadmill, these are great. If you're going to do like slight weights or something like that and use the sliding nature for some sort of exercises, I think they're
Okay. Is there do a time period when people should get this? For example, a stroke survivor. I
fine.
mean, can
Yeah,
they
great
start with
question.
it right away, or should
As
they
soon
wait?
as as soon as you can start load bearing on your affected side, I would recommend getting these shoes. So if you can't load bear, that means that you can never compress the pucks. And if you can't compress the pucks, then we're on the low friction surface up here. And you're not going to get your traction back. I wouldn't recommend it for that. Once you
Okay.
can get your weight on that affected leg, you're going to be able to apply pressure here. And when you apply pressure here, you get your traction back.
Is there a um, proper fitting for patients? I mean, if I wear an 11 and a half, can I order 11 and a half and it's
Yes.
probably going to fit?
Yes. So the shoe, we did a shoe study, a shoe size fit study. We have a local shoe testing place. Again, it's nice to be near all the shoe
Yeah.
manufacturers here. So they have this machine that goes into the shoe and it measures it in all directions and it tells you where your fit is compared to all the different brands. And it put
Hmm.
us right in the middle. So it was like, okay,
Nice.
that's good. So
Nice.
we are average size. We don't run small. We don't run large. We're right in the middle. You wear 11 and a half. That's probably going to be
Should it,
size.
the sizes be evaluated every so often after you've gotten?
If it's fitting too snug, then yeah, you could go up a size, or if it's feeling too loose. I,
Okay.
we have a measurement guide on our website, which is a standard shoe measurement guide for the different sizes. I measure it personally. I measure on that guide a 9.5, but I always buy 10 sneakers. So my 10, I just like a little extra room in there. So I can wear 9.5s, and in fact, I do wear our shoes in 9.5 sometimes to run, just because those are the only sample sizes I had, and it's fine. But I prefer a 10. So it's really, I think, the best way to do it, rather than using one of the sizing guides, is to buy whatever you normally buy, and
Okay.
because you're probably the shoe sizing tool might tell you a certain size, but you might prefer a different.
Okay. Well, why don't we go over the features of the Cadence adaptive shoes real quick, and then we'll get into how they can find out more and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
sure.
what kind of
So
features are we talking about?
yeah, so I mean, the main feature, like we touched on before, is the variable friction. So low friction when we contact the ground inadvertently, high friction when we put our weight on.
Slip,
We have
so slip resistant.
it's slip resistant once we get our weight on there. Yes, we
Okay,
want it to slide when we don't have the weight on there.
great.
So when we're scuffing our foot forward because we couldn't get it through, ideally you're not doing the circumduction as much, trying to avoid that. People, I think, I don't know of any literature, like scientific literature on this, but I think certain parts of the circumduction gait have to do with people being very concerned about clipping their foot on the ground when they're moving it forward. So if you're really concerned about catching your foot, tripping and falling, you're going to do anything you can to get that foot forward. When we give you a different constraint, it's kind of like the Skywalker machine, change the constraint underneath your body that doesn't penalize you so steeply, like catching your body and making you fall over, for clipping your foot, you're more likely to just come forward. So the biggest innovation here is that variable friction surface underneath.
Right.
This is the only shoe that offers that. It's our big thing. But like we said before, we got stiff back, so you can get the foot in. We have one finger operation of getting this on and off. There's also the shoes were meant to look like normal shoes. These are faux laces. They don't require you to tie anything because of dexterity problems post-stroke. We didn't want people to have to tie anything. So these things are just built in, and what they do is they stretch. So they allow your foot to go in, and they stretch, and then they hold the tongue down to your foot. That's so that you don't have to fuss with anything up here. So we've got those elastic laces here. This one is not elastic. This one is very stiff, and that's because this is the strap that holds you in securely. So we want this to
That
be nice and
strap,
stiff.
I gotta say, that strap, I'm impressed because it looks like part of the shoelaces.
Yes, yes. And we wanted, this strap itself, we built this. I could show you some really ugly ones that we started with, like a big, funky, big
Yeah,
Velcro ugly strap. We got to get rid of that. So, a lot of the aesthetic the parts of this design were what delayed it. Like we could have had this shoe out a year earlier if we just said, here, go with it. But we wanted to make sure this looked just like a regular lace. This goes back to the fact that people don't want to look different. They don't want to wear
yeah,
those adaptive sneakers that look like the kind that my 5-year-old wears with the two Velcro straps that come across. They don't want to look like a little kid, and they don't want to look like somebody that's impaired. They want to look just normal and good. So yeah, those are the main features. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. We have a non-slip rubber pad in the back too. If you
okay,
end up, oh, and actually, you know what? One of the features that I don't talk about enough and what we talked about in our research study paper to the National Institutes of Health was the biofeedback tool that's built into. I forgot to mention that. So biofeedback is something that gives you some sort of a signal based on the quality of your gait or your movement. These shoes, because they have this hard plastic, I'm gonna get it perfect. Okay, here's a notebook. So I've got this notebook here. And if I come in contact with the plastic, the low friction stuff, I'm going to know that I came in contact. It gives me a sound. If
oh,
I heel strike first, which is the goal of physical therapy, we want to get to the point where we're able to control our tibialis anterior and pull our toe up. When I contact with the heel, it's silent. So
ah,
this was for, I forgot to mention that, for stroke specifically. So in our beta test, we had this one who did really well with our shoes. He was 11 years post-stroke. Um, and he was a person after a week that I talked to, and he's like, I don't know if they're for me. I'm just feel like pretty uncertain about them, this low friction stuff. I don't know. And I talked to him about it, and I said, let's try to do the test in the waters. Let's go with it. Then the next week he talks to me. He's like, okay, I think I got it, and I'm starting to walk faster. He ended up walking three times as fast as his original gait after 11 years of training with robots and everything else. Ended up
wow,
going 3 times faster, and I was like, wow, okay. And to him, he's like, the best feature of the shoe is that clicking sound. I know where my foot is. So if I come in contact with the ground, I know I just did that. And I also know where my foot is without having to look down. So I know that when I slide through, I can hear it. I know where my foot is. And so that helps with the proprioception or knowing where our limbs are as we move.
yeah.
So for him, he's like, and now any shoe that doesn't click, I don't want that. I'm like, okay. So to us, that's we were thinking at the beginning when we were choosing materials, we're like, oh, maybe we need to make this silent because this is going to annoy people. They need to feel like they're in tap shoes or something. But
Yeah,
the more that we started to work with the people that were using the shoes, the more we started to think, no, this is actually helpful. So we use this so if you walk on like carpet, it's not going to make a noise. But if you walk on hard floor and you're trying to improve your gait and you're trying to walk 30 to 45 minutes a day, that's what we recommend for like a therapy. Then we want you to know where your foot is. We want that feedback back to the person.
what about the weight?
Good question. Yeah, they look heavy. because they've got a big thick sole, but there's a couple secrets in there. So the sole doesn't go up this high. So this is just a sidewall that comes up. So
Okay,
the sole actually starts like down here.
okay,
These shoes, I think we have the exact weight on our website, but it's not much different than another running shoe.
okay, okay.
They're very lightweight.
How do we find out more about Cadence Adaptive?
Yeah, so just go to our website. It's cadence.com. Cadence is spelled with an S though, Cadense. If you were to Google something like, let's see, if I were to Google um, uh, shoes for foot drop. Oops, I'm not on Google. I think it comes up. If you were to type in shoes for foot drop. Okay, yeah, we show right up. So you'll see Cadence adaptive shoes for foot drop right there. Or if you type in shoes for stroke, they're there too. Just confirm that. Yes, so it shows right up there. Best shoes for stroke patients, we're #1.
Okay,
So it'll show up right there.
fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. This
Thank
has
you, Ralph.
been very educational. I hope we can do more with you and promote this a little better. I mean, some of
That'd be
this,
great.
it's not for everybody, but
No,
there are people out there that can use this. And
yeah.
I'm one of those that took me 7 years to find out. I didn't even find out about an AFO until 7 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
It's so that's what we're trying to do is educate people about what's available out there.
That's
So I
great.
thank you very much and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Ralph.
We'll,
It's a pleasure
we'll
talking
talk
to you.
again soon.
All right, see ya.